The Aggies' loss to Notre Dame makes the matchup with Florida even more important.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about how the loss to Notre Dame, and we're almost past it. It's almost time to move on and get past it. But the loss to Notre Dame makes the Florida game even more important. And there's multiple reasons why, and we'll dive into all of them. But for me, the number one reason is because this team, after that loss, needs to get a big win, a big confidence-boosting win to get back on track. And while I think the matchup with McNeese can give this team some confidence, I think that the game against Florida will be the game that really boosts the overall confidence of this team if you go on the road, play well, and get a huge win. And, Florida being a team that got just stomped by Miami. Stomped by Miami. I think Florida is going to be very, very beatable for the Aggies. I think that this game now, listen, if you start the year 1-2, you're in a really bad spot. A really, really bad spot to where it's going to be hard to recover. We talk about swing games. There were 6 games on the schedule. We talked about this all off season. Notre Dame, LSU, Texas, and Missouri are your 4 home swing games. Auburn and Florida are your road swing games. There are 6 swing games that will make or break this season for the Aggies. We've talked about needing to win 3 of them, to be in a spot. If you go 0-2 in swing games to start the year, and you start the season 1-2, 0-2 in these swing games, you then have to go 3-1 against the likes of LSU, Missouri, Texas, and Auburn, which is not going to be an easy task. So, to me, what this means is this Florida game, and there's never I think the term must win is a bit overused, but I'm going to use it because I feel like this game is a must win. If you want this season to stay on track, losing to Notre Dame never was going to make or break your season. It'd have been awesome to start the year 1-0, get the huge win over a really, really incredible football team in Notre Dame. Didn't happen. That's okay. Now you need to find a way to beat Florida and get back on track. If you beat Florida, you're right back on track. So, and it's funny, I talked about how, what would have to happen for you to still get to 8 wins or perhaps even 9. And I saw a lot of comments, and I really agree with this. I'm saying, like, I don't know how you can even see that as a possibility with this offense, the way it played. I do not disagree at all with those comments. But I think you got to give this offense, you got to give this team one more game. And I'm not saying if they lose to Florida, let's just pack it in and let's move on. It's basketball and baseball season. That's not what we're doing here. But I think this Florida game is going to be huge when it comes to keeping this season on track. You look at the rest of the schedule, like I said, if you want to have confidence against Missouri and LSU and Auburn and Texas, if you want to go into those games believing you got a shot, step one is to take care of business against Florida on the road. in a game where we'll just kind of see what's happened there. I mean, I don't, it's week 3. I don't know how much confidence Florida's going to have. I do not think they feel great about their future here. But, this is a football game to me that you need the offense to be better. I have not given up hope on this offense yet. I've seen a lot of people close to giving up hope on this offense after one game. I've seen a lot of great stats. People have commented this. I want to share my thoughts on this for those that are saying this. Obviously they're facts, they're stats, so you can't deny them. But I saw people talking about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s stats against Notre Dame last year, and then I think maybe it was Caleb Williams. I forget who, but it was some elite players and their stat lines against Notre Dame from last year, and it was like nobody played well against Notre Dame. So I don't want to sit here and once again, that's facts. That's true. It's not an excuse because that's facts. But I don't want to sit here and just say, well, everybody plays bad against Notre Dame. It's okay. I mean, you could have been the exception. You could have played well. You could have won a huge game and gotten your season off with a bang. But that's all true. I do think that people, because I've seen two types of people, discussing this game. I've seen those people saying, listen, look what Notre Dame did to these players last year. I think that we're going to be okay. And then I've seen the people saying the offense is terrible. There's no coming back from this. We're done for. I think that you need to have that it's all going to be all right mentality when looking at this offense. And you have to believe it's going to be able to turn it around. I really think that it will be. I know how bad it looked. I know how bad Connor Weigman looked. I know receivers weren't open. I know running backs didn't get a lot going, yards per carry on the ground. I know people didn't agree with everything Coach Colin Klein did. I know the offensive line wasn't perfect. But all it takes is one game, maybe a confidence booster against McNeese, which we're getting ready to talk about here in segment 2, and then a big road win over Florida where your offense looks great for you to gain some confidence and go on a run. That's what I'm getting at here. While the Notre Dame loss hurt and the way you lost hurt, you have an elite defense. You know that. We're going to talk about what the defense needs to work on this week here in segment 2. Obviously, there's some things they need to get better at, just like the offense. But your defense is great. It's going to keep you in football games. If your offense can just be good, you can win some games, and you're probably going to win one. Maybe you shouldn't. So looking at that, to me, is how I think we all need to look at this Florida game. We need to look at this Florida game as a chance to rebound, a chance to right the ship, a chance to get better offensively. But I think that if this team isn't better offensively against Florida, now there's levels to it. If the offense is you know what I mean? They're fine. If Connor Weigman is fine, but not great, and the Aggies win, I think you roll with it. You say, okay, here we go. I think if Connor Weigman and the offense are awful in the Florida game and you lose, that is when a more serious conversation needs to happen. But I think step 1 is to beat up on McNeese, get yourself right, get this offense flowing, get everything going right. I think step 2 is then taking the confidence you build against McNeese and taking that into the Florida game and getting a huge road win. I think that the coaching staff will be able to look at film, figure out what went wrong, figure out, okay, how can we improve this offense for next week, for the rest of the season. I think that Connor Weigman, he took responsibility. He said, I did not play well. I've got to be better. He's right. He does have to be better for this team to win football games, for this team to have a good season. I think he's going to turn it around and have a better game against Florida. But once again, if he doesn't and this offense isn't better, that is when we need to start asking ourselves some serious questions about the future of the position and for the rest of the season, because you have some great options. So that is when that conversation needs to happen. But we need to all be behind Connor Weigman against McNeese and against Florida until, while this offense gets ready to rock and roll and gets ready for the rest of the season. Speaking of the matchup with McNeese, we're going to break down this football game and talk about what we want to see improved from Texas A&M to have confidence heading into the matchup with the Florida Gators. We're going to break down this McNeese game, what has to be better, coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So moving on to the matchup with McNeese. It's week 2. You had an ugly offensive loss in week 1. The defense did a lot well, did a few things that made you scratch your head. Now you head into week 2 against a team that you should beat by a substantial amount of points. Speaking of which, I actually want to pull up and see what the line is. I haven't seen that yet. Have they released one? They have to have released one. The line is... What's their new line? Say it down here. I'll figure it out. I'll look it up. But, I assume, the ESPN matchup predictor gives the Aggies a 98.6% chance to win this game. You figure it's going to be a very substantial line. McNeese has played 2 games. They lost to Tarleton State 26-23, and then they beat Southern 21-7. So they have played 2 games. But, I think that this football game, once again, is going to give Texas A&M an opportunity to get themselves right ahead of the Florida game. This is your chance to get a feel for things, to improve, to be better. And looking at this, the number one thing I have on my list, I have a list of about 5 or 6 things that need to be better in this game and what we can work on in this game. Number 1, it's Connor Weigman and his quarterback play. This is an opportunity for him to go and just, lay it on a team and just absolutely put up a ton of yards, have a great game, and give himself some confidence. Something I've learned playing various sports my whole life, and I'm sure all of y'all that have, played something, every once in a while, just beating up on a team that's not as good as you gives you a little bit of confidence. I remember in high school, especially in baseball, we'd lose a big district game. And then our district games were always, it changed throughout my high school career, but at my senior year when I was, getting a lot of innings, we played district games back-to-back days, Tuesday and Wednesday. So you couldn't get a ton of, so you couldn't, play one this week and then save your ace for that. You had to throw another pitcher. And so on Saturdays, we'd always play non-district teams, some of which were solid teams, some of which were very, very bad teams. And it was always nice after maybe splitting a district series we shouldn't have, or getting swept or whatever happening, going to play a bad team and just steamrolling them and getting some confidence. And that is what this is for Connor Weigman. This is going to give him some confidence. This whole team some confidence. But he needs to go in and play well. So what I'm saying is, while we might look at this game when it's over and go, okay, it was McNeese, where you're supposed to win 42-7. That's what was supposed to happen. Sure, yes, that was what was supposed to happen. But at the same time, it's more significant than that for these players. It's hopefully going to give these players some confidence heading into a much more important game against the Florida Gators. So, yes, it's McNeese. Yes, the Aggies should win this game by a lot of points. And yes, we're not going to be like, oh, we're back. Here we go. We're back. If the Aggies have a great offensive day, we're going to have to see it against Florida. But I will gain confidence for the future if Connor Weigman has a huge game in this game. He needs to play well because it's going to put him in a good spot for the rest of the season. It's going to put him in a good spot for the Florida game. You need your quarterback to be good. If your quarterback isn't good, it's hard to win football games. Connor Weigman's got to be better. If he's better against Florida, knowing the defense the Aggies have, knowing this defense will travel, I think the Aggies take down the Gators. But Connor Weigman has to play well. So that's the number one thing that has to improve in this game. The next thing is the offensive line push. Pass protection, I think for the most part, I was cool with. There was obviously some plays. There's some guys in the backfield. But for the most part, I was fine with it. I said for the most part, not fully for the most part. The push on the offensive line's got to be better. What was it? 3.4 yards per carry for the Aggies. Let's see. It was 3.8 yards per carry. A little bit better than I thought, but still, you'd like to see that improve. And it's the same thing for the offensive line. Is the front seven of the defensive line for McNeese the same level of talent as Notre Dame or Florida? No, it's not. But if you just push some people around and get some confidence, it gives you that boost you need to feel better going into a game like Florida. So the offensive line needs to get some push. Defense, the only thing I really have here for defense is wrap up. The defense last game, well, I thought for the most part they were great. The only complaint I had was they struggled to wrap up at times, missed some big tackles. There were a few routes I didn't love when it came to making a tackle, especially on that long touchdown run. But, wrap up. If you wrap up, if you make the first tackle, if you make a sound tackle, you're going to be just fine. So that's a key for me here is making sure the defense wraps up. You have to make sure that you are doing that. And then the next thing I have here is the receivers got to get open. And whether it's Coach Klein's scheming stuff for them to get open or them just beating their guy, the receivers, and it's a bit of both. I've seen some people upset with how Colin Klein coached the game. I've seen people just upset with Connor Weigman. I've seen people upset with the receivers. I think everybody has stuff to get better at, get to work on this week. So these receivers, crisp up those routes, get open, cut hard, find a way to get open, find a way to make easier throws for Connor Weigman. And I think if these receivers, Connor Weigman, get on a better, figure things out together, I think it'll be huge for the Aggies when it comes to, being ready for the Florida game. And then the running backs, being explosive. Yes, obviously the offensive line needs to create holes for these running backs, but sometimes you got to just create something on your own. These running backs need to be explosive. I think between Daniels and Smith and Moss, you have some explosive guys. You have some strength, some power guys in catch ball in the backfield. You have a lot of backs, and they can really all do it all, in my opinion. But I still want to see some more explosive plays out of the backfield this week. And while it's obviously the offensive line's got to help, I think the running backs, it'd be great if you could see them make some plays on their own, because every once in a while, the offensive line's not going to get a ton of push, and you need to find a way to get open. To get in space on your own as a running back. And the last thing I wrote here is just build confidence. And that is the key here. You've got to build confidence heading into this Florida game, because it will make or break this season. Before we move on here, I want to say, go over a few things. First thing, I'm going to talk about two things on tomorrow's show. We're going to talk a little bit about recruiting right now, a little bit. But knowing we're playing McNeese, and we're not going to do as much game prep as we will on a normal week-to-week basis. Leave me two types of questions. I want to hear recruiting questions. We're going to talk about recruiting either tomorrow or Friday, one or the other. Probably tomorrow, and then we'll do more of a keys to a victory, what we want to see against McNeese on Friday. And then drop some mailbag questions just in general about the team, about going forward, about the offense. just leave some questions y'all want answered in the YouTube comments. Curious to hear what y'all have to say there. But I want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on where we stand recruiting. What do we see about recruiting after the loss to Notre Dame? How do we feel? We'll talk about all that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. So I just wanted to talk for a second about recruiting and about where the Aggies are at recruiting-wise. You had a ton of recruits on campus for the Notre Dame game. And I'll tell you this. What I really wanted to talk about, we're going to talk more about specific recruiting tomorrow. What I really wanted to talk about real quick for a minute or two was that I think what recruits are going to take away from the matchup with Notre Dame was what that atmosphere was like. We've heard recruits talk about it. We've seen post-game quotes from some recruits. The recruits absolutely loved what they saw when it came to the atmosphere in Kyle Field for that football game. It was incredible. The atmosphere was truly incredible. It's what makes Texas A&M. It's what makes the 12th man. It's what makes Kyle Field the best environment, the best fan base, in college football. And I think that I'll tell you this, I think that recruits are going to look at that, and the people want to play here. That's just the reality. People want to play at Texas A&M because people absolutely love this atmosphere and playing in front of an incredible section like that. So that's my first thought. I still think this recruiting class is in a great spot. I don't have any negative recruiting thoughts after the loss to Notre Dame. I've seen some folks worried. Does this affect recruiting? No, I don't think it does. You held your own. You were in the game. You lost. Stuff happens. I think that the Aggies are a solid football team, and I don't think people are going to look at this and be upset when it comes to recruits and stuff like that. So your recruiting class is still in a really good spot, and I don't think you're done yet. I think you've got more to improve on. I think you're still in it for some really, really talented players, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. So that's my thoughts on recruiting. Like I said, leave some recruiting questions. We'll talk about maybe some specific players, where the class is at, what we still need in this class. That'll be tomorrow's conversation. Leave recruiting questions in the YouTube comments, and then leave just flat out mailbag questions about anything Notre Dame game, McNeese game, Florida game, future of the season. Leave those questions in the YouTube comments as well, and we will answer those on the show tomorrow as well. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. Really, really appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Helps the show a ton. Going to have a lot of great content coming to you every Monday through Friday, and then obviously a bonus show after games throughout the rest of the season. So turn on the notifications. And then once again, if you're listening on YouTube, you can find me wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on a podcast platform, you can also find me. Come on over here and subscribe on YouTube as well. Appreciate y'all being here. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today. NFL football is almost here. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.